The call came on a Thursday afternoon while I was underneath a rusted pickup truck, trying to loosen a bolt that looked like it had fused itself to the axle sometime during the Obama administration. My phone buzzed 3 times before I finally slid out from under the truck, wiping sweat and grease across my forehead. "Hello? Marcus?" The voice stopped me cold. It was Laura Bennett, my best friend's mom. I hadn't heard her voice in almost 3 years. Mrs. Bennett?" She laughed softly. "You still call me that?" I sat up slowly on the garage floor. "Sorry, habit." There was a brief silence, the kind that carried memories inside it. "How have you been?" she asked. "Good, busy, working a lot. I heard you started your own repair business." "Trying to." I smiled faintly. "Depends on the day." "Well, I actually need help with something." "Sure." "The fence in the backyard collapsed after the storm last night. I called 2 contractors, but they won't come out until next week." Her voice softened carefully. "I remembered you were always good with your hands." I looked down at the wrench in my palm. Back when I was 16, I'd practically lived at the Bennett house. Me and Tyler had spent every summer there, basketball in the driveway, video games until midnight, frozen pizzas, Laura always bringing us lemonade like we were starving construction workers. Then life happened. Tyler moved to Seattle after college. I stayed behind. People drifted. That's how it goes. "You still there?" she asked. Yeah, I can come by after work." "You don't have to rush." "It's fine." Another small pause. "Thank you, Marcus." Something about the way she said it lingered after the call ended. By the time I pulled into the Bennett's driveway, the sun was lowering behind the trees, painting the neighborhood gold. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I'd just gotten older. Laura opened the door before I even knocked. For a second, my brain struggled to reconcile memory with reality. She looked different, not worse, just realer. The bright energy she used to carry around effortlessly had softened into something quieter. Her brown hair was tied loosely back, strands falling around her face. She wore an oversized gray sweater and jeans dusted with dirt near the knees. Beautiful wasn't the right word anymore. Beautiful sounded simple. She looked like someone who had survived things. "Wow," she said, smiling gently. "Look at you." I laughed awkwardly. I was gonna say the same thing. "You got taller." "I'm pretty sure I stopped growing in high school." "Well, you seem taller." For a moment, we just stood there smiling like 2 people surprised by time. Then she stepped aside. "The fence is back there." The backyard looked exactly the same except for the broken section leaning sideways near the garden. I walked over, inspecting the damage. "Wind snap?" I asked. "Mostly, but I think the wood was already weak." I pressed against one of the posts. "Rotten." "Yeah, this needed replacing a while ago." I figured. She tucked hair behind her ear. "Can it be fixed?" "Definitely." "You sure?" "I used to help my dad build fences every summer." "You also once nailed your own thumb." "That happened one time." "You cried." "I was 13. She laughed, and suddenly it felt dangerous how easy this was. I spent the next hour pulling broken boards loose while Laura sat nearby on the patio, steps sipping iced tea. We talked the way people do when years have created enough distance to make honesty easier. She told me Tyler barely called anymore. I told her my father had passed the year before. Her expression changed immediately. "Oh my God, Marcus." "I didn't know." "Heart attack." "When?" "Last January." She stood slowly and walked toward me. Before I could react, she wrapped her arms around me. Not dramatic, not romantic, just human. And somehow that made it worse, because I hadn't realized how badly I needed someone to hold me together for a second. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. I closed my eyes. She smelled like vanilla and laundry. Detergent in summer evenings I thought were long gone. When she stepped back, her eyes looked glossy. "He was a good man." "Yeah," I said quietly. "He was." The sun dipped lower as I worked. Eventually, Laura disappeared inside. A few minutes later, she leaned out the back door. "Finish the fence and I'll make lunch." I looked at the darkening sky and laughed. "Laura, it's almost evening." "Then dinner." "That's bribery." "It's motivation." I shook my head, smiling despite myself. "Fine." She disappeared back inside, and I realized something uncomfortable. I was looking forward to staying. An hour later, the fence stood straight again. Fresh boards lined neatly against the old weathered sections. I brushed dirt off my jeans and stepped back to admire it. "Looks good," Laura said behind me. I turned. She'd changed clothes. Soft cream-colored sweater. Hair down now. No makeup that I could see, but there was something intimate about the simplicity of it. like she'd stopped trying so hard for the world. "You hungry?" she asked. "Starving." The kitchen smelled incredible. Garlic, butter, something baking in the oven. "You cooked all this?" I still remember growing boys eating enough for 5 people. I smiled as she placed plates on the table. She said, "Tyler used to get jealous of you." I looked up. "Why?" "He thought I liked you more." I laughed. "That's ridiculous. You listened better." "To you?" "To everyone." She sat across from me, studying me carefully. "You were always kind, Marcus." Nobody had called me kind in a very long time. Not since bills and grief and survival had turned life into something mechanical. "Eat, work, sleep, repeat. You know what's funny?" she said softly. "What?" "You used to look at me like I was the prettiest woman alive." I nearly choked on my drink. "Oh my God." "What?" she teased. "You noticed that?" I was 38, not dead. I rubbed my face in embarrassment, while she laughed harder than I'd seen all evening. "You had the biggest crush on me. I was 17. You blushed every time I touched your shoulder." "I'm leaving." "You're literally holding a fork." I couldn't stop smiling, though, and maybe that was the problem, because underneath the teasing was something else now. Something adult, complicated, dangerous. The laughter slowly faded. Then came the silence. Not awkward, heavy. Laura looked down at her plate before speaking again. After my divorce, I stopped feeling visible." I frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" She shrugged faintly. "I spent 23 years being somebody's wife and somebody's mother." Her fingers traced the rim of her glass. Then suddenly Tyler moved away, my marriage ended, and the house got quiet. She looked at me carefully. "You start wondering if the best parts of your life already happened." I didn't know what to say, because I understood that feeling more than I wanted to admit. After my dad died, life had shrunk. Friends stopped calling. Relationships faded. The future stopped feeling exciting and started feeling expensive. "You're still visible," I said finally. Her eyes met mine. The air changed instantly. "You think so?" "Yeah." The word came out rougher than I intended. She held my gaze too long, or maybe not long enough. Then quietly, "You're not a kid anymore." My chest tightened. Neither of us moved. The oven timer beeped suddenly, breaking whatever had started happening between us. Laura stood quickly. "I should get dessert." I stared at the table while she moved around the kitchen. My mind was spiraling. This was Tyler's mother, my best friend's mother. There were rules about these things. Invisible lines decent people didn't cross. But every time she looked at me, those lines blurred a little more. We ate pie on the back porch while crickets filled the night air. At some point, the conversation slowed naturally. Laura wrapped both hands around her mug. "Can I tell you something terrible?" "Sure." "There were days after the divorce where I wished someone would just look at me." She gave a sad little smile. Not politely. Not out of obligation. "Really look at me." I swallowed hard, because I was looking at her exactly that way, and she knew it. "You deserve that," I said quietly. The porch light cast soft shadows across her face. "You always knew the right thing to say." "No," I admitted. "I usually just say the honest thing." Her breathing slowed. Then came the whisper that changed everything. "I used to hope you'd come back someday." The words hit me like a physical force. "What?" She looked embarrassed immediately, staring down at her hands. "Forget it." "No, I shouldn't have said that." "Laura." She stood suddenly and walked toward the railing, hugging herself against the cool night air. "I was lonely," she said softly. "And every once in a while, I'd think about those summers when the house was full and loud and happy." Her voice cracked slightly. "You brought life into this place." I stood slowly. Every instinct told me not to move closer. Every instinct failed. When I stopped beside her, she didn't step away. "We're both lonely," I said. Her eyes lifted toward mine, and there it was again. That impossible tension. Not fantasy, not lust, recognition. Two people seeing each other completely at the exact wrong time, or maybe the exact right one. "I don't know what this is," she whispered. "Neither do I." "You're Tyler's best friend." "I know." "You're 12 years younger than me." "I know that too." She laughed shakily through tears. "This should feel insane." "Does it?" Her answer took too long. "No." The night seemed to stop breathing around us. Then Laura reached up slowly and touched my cheek. The gesture was so gentle it almost hurt. "You became a good man, Marcus." Something inside me broke quietly, because nobody had said that since my father died. I covered her hand with mine instinctively, and when she leaned closer, I didn't stop her. The kiss was soft, tentative, full of hesitation and hunger and grief and loneliness all tangled together. When we pulled apart, both of us looked stunned. Laura covered her mouth briefly. Oh God, I should have walked away then. Maybe that would have been easier, cleaner. But life isn't clean. Life is messy, people finding warmth in each other when the world gets cold. I don't regret it, I admitted. She looked at me for a long moment. Then quietly, neither do I. Inside the house, the old clock ticked steadily on the kitchen wall while the repaired fence stood strong beneath the moonlight outside, and for the first time in years neither of us felt alone.